order. Welcome to the 18th meeting of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs. In accordance with the motion adopted on September 18, 2025, the committee is meeting as part of its study on barriers to entrepreneurship among veterans. Today's meeting is being held in a hybrid format in accordance with the rules of procedure. Members and witnesses may participate in person or via the Zoom application.
Ask all in-person participants to consult the guidelines written on the cards on the table. These measures are in place to help prevent audio and feedback incidents and to protect the health and safety of all participants, including the interpreters. Pour garantir le bon déroulement de la réunion, j'aimerais transmettre certaines consignes aux témoins.
To ensure that the meeting runs smoothly, I would like to give some instructions to witnesses and members. Before speaking, wait until I call on you. If you're participating by video conference, click on the microphone icon to activate your microphone. Please mute yourself when you're not speaking. With regards to interpretation, those on Zoom can choose between French, English, or the floor at the bottom of the screen. Those in the room can use the headphones and select the desired channel. I'd like to remind you that all observations from members and witnesses must be addressed to the chair.
For member in the Zoom, I don't think actually we have any members, so we will proceed. J'aimerais maintenant souhaiter la bienvenue.
I would like to wish a warm welcome to our witnesses. As an individual, Mr. Jocelyn Demetre, President of Hero Lodge. Hello.
Project, Mr. David Howard, President and Chief Executive Officer by video conference. So each of our witness and member of the organization will represented at this meeting will be giving 5 minutes to deliver their opening remarks, and once all witnesses have spoken, we will proceed to a round of questions with the members of the committee. Monsieur Jocelyn Demetre, je vous donne la parole.
Mr. Jocelyn Demetre, I'll give you the floor for 5 minutes. Hello, I'm a retired infantry captain, Jocelyn Demetre, former 22, father of 3 military children. I would like to thank my wife for being here today. She's the mother of these 3 brave soldiers. I would also like to thank MP Gaudreau for having allowed me to participate in this committee. I greatly appreciate it. I'd also like to thank Veterans Affairs for all the work and services provided to me as a veteran. I've always been supported, and I don't see how anyone could help me anymore, actually. For me, Veterans Affairs has always provided me excellent service. Once I returned from my mission, I went through some dark years. I had difficulty letting go, lacked patience, sought adrenaline, suffered from insomnia and hypervigilance, had an overly rigid approach, experienced suicidal thoughts, and above all, I felt a great inner emptiness. And I identified this as my dark passenger. And this is undoubtedly the greatest challenge for a combat veteran. Numbing this feeling of emptiness is still a daily struggle. Many veterans will choose to fill this void with drugs, alcohol, excessive eating, impulse buying, and gambling, etc. Too often, these choices lead to isolation, depression, and suicide as a way to fill this emotional void. And in other words, to feed the beast. I chose fishing, hunting, and the outdoors as my escape. To help my brothers in arms to choose the same escape routes, we founded 12 years ago, my wife and myself, Hero Lodge. It is a refuge located on the Great Slave Lake in the Northwest Territories, and this is working. Hero Lodge will be entering its 13th season next year. We have welcomed several hundred veterans and active CAF members. Several reports have been conducted there, and despite attempts to receive financial assistance to pay for the daily operations and the improvement and maintenance, we've never received any funding from Veterans Affairs. For example, twice we've requested financial assistance to improve accessibility for people with reduced mobility. We are on the Canadian Shield, and the site is austere and requires a certain level of physical fitness. We are unable to accept all veterans who wish to experience the Hero Lodge, a trip north of the 60th parallel to catch giant fish with their brothers and sisters in arms. Having the necessary funding to help us to apply for programs would be the necessary assistance to apply for programs would be a game changer. The distribution of grants seems unfair to me and raises some questions. Just trying to meet with staff and speak with them is almost impossible. Climate change is having an incredible impact on our operations. We need help to deal with this. I still finance part of the operations through the sale of my book, Sunray 2:1, and I'm struggling to make ends meet. Every year we ask ourselves, my wife and myself, will we be able to continue? In addition, I receive calls from people referred by Veterans Affairs, including several Indigenous veterans who are all surprised to learn that Hero Lodge is not subsidized. Knowing that they have to pay for the Hero Lodge experience, many decide not to go. I have received several comments that our shelter model is perfectly suited to Indigenous veterans, and I agree 100% with this. Receiving financial assistance that would help us welcome First Nations people to Hero Lodge would make a big difference. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to answering your questions more spontaneously. I chose to read my remarks to avoid forgetting anything or lose my train of thought. Despite being bilingual, I chose my maternal language to be as effective as possible. So please don't hesitate. For the Anglophone MPs, I speak in English as well. Thank you, Mr. Demetre, and thank you very much for everything you're contributing and what you've done for us here in Canada.
Pass the floor to Mr. David Howards for 5 minutes, please.
Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity. I much appreciate it. My name is David Howard. I founded the Homes for Heroes Foundation, which is supportive housing initiative for homeless veterans, and Canadian Legacy Project, which is a volunteer-run charity providing free programs to aid veterans in their transition to civilian life. One of our key initiatives at the Canadian Legacy Project is the Business Bootcamp. It's an entrepreneurial training program delivered online 4 times a year to over 40 veterans per session. Since its inception, we've graduated over 300 veterans. With the program now heading into its 6th year in 2026, the course is led by 2 university professors from the Mount Royal University. Graduates leave with a business plan to start their own ventures and gain access to a network of veteran-run businesses for ongoing support. Additionally, we offer annual grants totaling $30,000 available to graduates who demonstrate their business success, plans for utilizing the funds, commitment to hiring veteran employees, and contributions to their community. Our program is the only one of its kind offered for free in Canada. In contrast, the University of Ottawa offers a similar program for $5,000, which requires 6 years of service for Veterans Affairs Canada to cover that fee. Though there are a few coding and programming tech courses, no other free entrepreneurial program like ours exists, and we have not yet received VAC funding for assistance. We also developed an online resource called shopveteran.ca, where veteran-owned businesses can list their services for marketing and network with fellow veterans. And it's promoted to the Canadian public to support veteran entrepreneurs. As an entrepreneur at heart, I've always pursued opportunities that inspired me, which led me to establish the 2 veteran charities, Homes for Heroes and Canadian Legacy Project. Starting a business can be challenging for anyone, but military veterans face unique issues due to their experiences and background. I wanted to outline some common challenges veterans might encounter when venturing into entrepreneurship. Transitioning skills. Veterans often possess strong leadership, discipline, and teamwork skills. However, translating military skills into the business world can be difficult. Some may struggle to understand how their experiences apply to civilian contexts and business operations. As an example, a veteran who led a unit into combat may have an excellent decision-making and skills, but find it challenging to apply these skills in a corporate structure or managing day-to-day business. Access to funding. Securing financing can be a significant hurdle. Veterans might face challenges in obtaining loans or investments, especially if they lack a robust credit history, business experience, or clear business plan. As an example, a veteran might have a brilliant idea for a tech startup, but could be denied funding due to insufficient collateral or previous business experience. Understanding the market. Veterans might have limited experiences understanding the market dynamics, customer behavior, and competitive analysis needed to start up a successful business. As an example, a veteran wanting to open a retail shop may not have the marketing experience necessary to reach and engage potential customers. Mental health challenges. Many veterans face psychological issues such as PTSD, anxiety, or depression, which can affect their ability to manage stress, make decisions, or engage with customers or employees. As an example, a veteran with PTSD might find networking or public speaking daunting, which could hinder business development efforts, but their leadership and organizational skills make them a great fit to be an entrepreneur. Isolation and support networks. Transitioning from a military to civilian career can lead to feelings of isolation. Veterans may miss the camaraderie and support they had in the military, making it harder to seek help or build a robust professional network. As an example, a veteran may have difficulty reaching out for mentorship opportunities, feeling disconnected from the business community. Our shopveteran.ca program has been a lifesaver for some. Navigating regulations. Understanding the legal and regulatory landscape is complicated for any entrepreneur. However, veterans may struggle more with this due to their previous reliance on structured military protocols. A veteran, as an example, a veteran may be unsure how to comply with local business regulations, zoning laws, or tax requirements, leading to potential legal issues. Lastly, it's time management. Veterans transitioning to business ownership might feel it challenging to balance the demands of starting a new venture with personal responsibilities and adjusting to civilian routines. Example, juggling family commitments while developing a business plan can be overwhelming. So we do have some ideas and yes? Okay, so
Second more.
I won't get into, pardon me?
Sorry, I just, how about if we try to wrap this up within 20 seconds and then we'll open the floor for questioning.
Of course. So, just in review, the top 5 challenges facing veteran entrepreneurs are entrepreneurial training, funding, isolation, mental health, and marketing.
I sincerely apologize, sir. I will have to say I'm the clock keeper here as chair, so I apologize very much for interrupting you, and I'm sure throughout the questions we'll have a chance for you to express furthermore comments. On this, I would like to open the floor for Mr. Thome for 6 minutes.
Thank you to our witnesses for your interventions. We do appreciate it. It's a bit of a change of pace from what we've been recently studying. And and once we start a new program, there's a bit of a transition. So a couple of my questions may include a little bit of what we just previously studied, but it is going to incorporate what you're dealing with. So if you're okay with that, I would appreciate your perspective. Mr. Dimitri, Captain Dimitri, is that correct? Yep. 22 Van Duze? Yeah. Okay. In our suicide prevention study, this committee identified a kind of a transition blind spot for when you come out of the military, where there's a bit of a gap, where we've got military members, they're part of a cohesive group, a unit, a squad, a battalion, and then they get out and they have nothing. And the dangerous period when veterans lose their military peer support before connecting with VAC services. So there's a challenge there. So is there a similar entrepreneurship blind spot that happens? So when veterans release, are they informed that entrepreneurship is a viable career option, or do they only discover programs like yours months or years after struggling with traditional employment?
De ce que je comprends, on comprend tout le monde.
Everyone can understand? Yes. So I don't see any direct link to encourage organizations such as mine directly with VAC and the clients that need care. So there's no link we have made our own promotion, and this has brought a lot to us, but we're kind of a check in the box because we are on Great Slave Lake. So that's how the advertising happens. It's word of mouth. But now we have people that come, people from the Quebec Veterans Foundation, and the word has spread around. But we need more financial assistance in order to be able to receive more veterans, because people with reduced mobility it cannot come right now. Some, for example, Matt, who lost both legs to an IED. You can see that on page 1 of the visual aid. You can see him. And this is a huge challenge for us and our entire team to receive these types of people.
Okay, so thank you for clarifying, but I want to be absolutely specific. So the requests that you're making for to VAC is for accessibility. It's for veterans to be able to come and to participate. It's not like a handout that you're looking for. It's not like to improve your business model. You're just, can you explain that a little bit?
Oui, ben moi, personnellement, je parle pour moi-même.
Well, I'm speaking on behalf of myself. My dream would be that it would become a charitable organization, Hero Lodge, that it would be a charitable organization. So, in my opinion, I'm not trying to make any money with this, and that's not what I'm trying to do. But a 2x4 for the Northwest Territories has to be flown in. Everything has to be flown in. So a piece of wood is going to cost us $10. So to have financial assistance from VAC to be able to build wooden pathways so that people who have mobility issues, who have lost their legs. We have a sergeant who contacted us last year, and he had Parkinson's, and he had quite severe Parkinson's, and we had to refuse him because we don't have any accessibility for him. It would have been dangerous. And a retired sergeant. I mean, really, this broke my heart to not be able to have him come.
The time, but just as we get in more questions, so I just want a brief answer from you. You said to me that you and your wife are personally funding this from your own pocket right now.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. That's disappointing. Mr. Howard, but thank you. I want to say thank you for your generosity and your heart. That shows a lot. Mr. Howard, the Liberal government talks about supporting veterans, but there's no veteran-owned business certification, in Canada, no procurement preferences and minimal entrepreneurship funding. Is this a blind spot, or are they just simply not prioritizing veterans' economic success?
No, I think it's a blind spot. I mean, we've been operating our program for the last 6 years. We're the only one of its kind. We're self-funded. We're funded by corporations. We're funded by individuals. Look, we've graduating 300 veterans through our program. So there's 300 businesses that have come through our program, started themselves, bootstrapped themselves. We have now created a network for them through shopveteran.ca. So yeah, it's something that's required. The training and the support needs to be there.
Thank you for your answer. I think I'm out of time.
Mr. Tony, I would say congratulations. I'm very impressed. Mrs. Erdl, for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you both for being here today. I would like to address Mr. Howard. I want to start by acknowledging the nearly 2 decades of invaluable work that the Canadian Legacy Project has done and continues to do with respect to addressing the transition to civilian life of Canada's veterans. Likewise, the work of the Homes for Heroes, which I can imagine has come up against a range of challenges in getting things done. I spent the last decade before becoming a parliamentarian at a Community Futures program in Nova Scotia, and helped hundreds of people start small businesses, but had very few veterans come through the door. So I was quite pleased to be able to sponsor this study and hear how we can make things better. So I'd like to start with, in your experience, Mr. Howard, does the average veteran recognize in themselves the potential for entrepreneurialism, or is that something that they aren't considering? Let's start.
Well, yeah, I think that we have a bulk of veterans. I would say 50% consider the idea of entering a business concept an idea. What happens traditionally is our professors meet with all individuals one-on-one. So they walk them through the stages of becoming an entrepreneur and the difficulties and the barriers they might have. So right away, we're finding that there's some students, some vets that decide that maybe this isn't the right path for them. And then there's others that join the program and they go through the program to create a business plan and start a business.
Great. Have you observed any patterns of officers or those in the trades to be more likely to want to start their own business? And does any kind of a security clearance or field experience affect their ability to enter in a field at a more perhaps exclusive level?
I don't, if you're asking if there's certain industries that we see that are major growth areas, we see the wide range from people starting medical clinics to helping seniors to construction to roofing. I mean, if you go to shopveteran.ca, you'll see hundreds of businesses across the country started by vets from every single different type of industry.
Okay, thank you. So in your mind, and you listed some of these things, what do you think are the biggest obstacles for veterans being successful business leaders?
So I think there's three really the big ones I see is training. Training is number one. I mean, as I said, we're really the only program there that's available at no cost to veterans. So that's one thing. The second is, and we touched on it earlier, is that network and having that network of peers. You rely on that in the military, and you rely on that as an entrepreneur. Started 6, 7 businesses on myself, and I'm a member of the EO organization. That's been invaluable to me. By creating the SHOP Veteran Program, which we have, this brings veterans together across the country so they can share ideas. I mean, it's there to market their businesses to all Canadians, but it's being used as that support network, which is really, really key. And then I think thirdly is financial, the support financially and access to loans and grants. Very difficult for many vets to come out and get support. I think the BDC might be one of those groups that they could rely on, but without having previous experience, all business plans, it's difficult.
Right, thank you. So access to capital plays a significant role in scaling the opportunity. Then what would you, so you mentioned BDC, I think you mentioned that you're self-funded, so what are the most common sources and amounts of investment required?
Well, I mean, it can be as simple as $1,000. Quite frankly, we had an individual who went through our program, graduated, applied for the grant, was looking for $4,000. $4,000 was going to add to her business. She had an ice cream cart business. It was as simple as that. $4,000 was going to get her a hot dog roller. That hot dog roller doubled her business. You imagine that. Doubled her business. She's not a drain on anyone. She's paying her taxes. She's becoming, as opposed to being supported from back, she's now supporting herself.
Amazing, thank you. What kind of supports did you access when you started out, and were there gaps in that as well?
Well, trial and error. I've been a veteran. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 14. I've always worked for myself. So what I have found, and as I mentioned, is EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, was huge for me. It allowed me to become part of a network of 300 different businesses and rely on there for support. So if I needed something, if I had an insurance question or I had employee problems or finance problems, whatever, I could lead on that group. Until I found that, I found it a struggle because you're out there on your own and you're making all the decisions. You're not so sure sometimes if you're making the right ones.
Right, that makes sense. And just in my last seconds, I'll ask about the Business Bootcamp program. Do you start with a problem or sector and then find mentors for that area, or do you put experienced mentors together with veterans to kind of inspire them to innovate?
So the Business Bootcamp is a program that's done online, and it's run by a university professor. So the whole idea here is to help veterans start their own business, create a business plan, come out of that with a plan to start their own company. So it's a lot of one-on-one training and then group training, and then they present their concept to the group at the end. And they are given a certificate of from the Business Bootcamp after that, they're able to join shopveteran.ca. That's where they have that network of support.
Thank you very much, Mr. Howard. Pour 6 minutes, Gaudreau. And Mr. Howard,
For 6 minutes.
address you in French, so just make sure that you have the proper translation, please.
Right.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's amazing. I am learning every time I'm in contact with Mr. Dimitri. And so today, Mr. Dimitri received an honorary distinction by the minister. Yes. And yes, in fact, yes, truly. And I learned, I've grown to know Mr. Dimitri, and it was during an interview with Patrice Roy. And not just Patrice Roy knows him well, also Carrie Price. Carrie Price, and they were talking about what happens after. And we can say what we will, but I think that here is a concrete example of a person who not only is very devoted, but is also an entrepreneur down to his soul. I'm really very, very amazed after having done all this work to say we're going to create Hero Lodge. That's amazing. Answer: well, after my 20 years at CAF, I couldn't continue. I was declassified and I was shown the door, so I could not continue. And so that was not my decision. It was made for me, and I had to face it. And so also for me, I was able to tame the beast with fishing and hunting. And my wife had this idea of starting a lodge. And in the beginning, it was a little bit of a crazy idea, but it seemed to be the most logical thing to do and kept me very busy to work and to really believe in this and to create something from nothing. And it put me on the right path. I was able to grow, not only emotionally, but I was able to fill the void that I had inside of me. And I was lucky because I had a wonderful wife, children, people around me who loved me and supported me. And I think that entrepreneurship for a veteran can be something, can be a wonderful escape or a way to fill the emptiness. Because I was deployed 7-8 months a year, and we lived life in the fast lane. I always would raise my hand to participate in different operations domestically and elsewhere, and to arrive at the end of such a crazy lifestyle, and then to say, okay, everything is over now. There's nothing. Well, that's really hard. And then to start a business, I think it's a great idea. So, Madam Chair, what I find this to be incredible. I am an entrepreneur, but really, you were trying to. He disclosed what he went through, and not all veterans dare or are able to do so. But in addition, not only the brothers and the sisters at arms, they read the book, and that is why you have a copy here. And then there's a whole process. But in addition, the money for the book was used just for this. During the first years, yes. And well, the book was a bestseller. We've sold 20,000 copies in Quebec. So during the first year, through Canadian Tire, we sold 6,000 copies, and a lot of profits were generated, and that's how we started. Today, it's still selling quite well, but less than before. So we've been counting on the generosity of other business owners. We received Cyril, and he's an avid fisherman, and when he came to Hero Lodge, he gave us a good donation to come and fish with the heroes. And so we count on these types of donations, and we're fortunate because we have a love story with the rest of Canada, Quebec, and Alberta. And I'm saying Quebec and Alberta because these are the two main provinces that participate in Hero Launch. We've been able to reach them the most, and a lot of entrepreneurs have been helping us. So my last question, Madam Chair. I'm not a veteran. So what qualities can be useful for civilian life when you've been in the armed forces? What's useful to become an entrepreneur? Well, the Army shows us very quickly to never give up, to never ever give up, to believe. And I think that to be a good entrepreneur, you really have to believe in your mission. You create a mission for yourself, and you do not give up. And I think that veterans, we have this in our DNA. And I think that's it. Never give up. Amazing. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Dimitri. Now,
5 minutes, Mr. Viersen.
Madam Chair, Mr. Howard, I got a report in front of me from the BDC, and they note that it's been an alarming decline in the number of Canadians that start businesses. I'm just wondering, have you seen or experienced this in your work?
Actually, the opposite in regards to participation within our program. So when we first started, we would have 20 per class, and now we're at max at 40 students per program. So the program is just gaining steam, and we're trying to offer more. If we had the funding and to add another professor, we certainly would.
Okay. Now they note that increasingly complex business environment is one of the challenges, and that may lead to the reason more people are trying to get trained on this. Have you noticed an increase in business climate complexity? I'm just trying to figure out what that term might mean.
In regards to the types of businesses they're starting, is that what you're referring to?
That's one of the things that the BDC notes as a cause of the decline of people starting their business.
You know, I'm telling you, we're dealing with some incredibly talented individuals that come out of KM Armed Forces, and we see, veterans starting charities, just as we have here with Hero Lodge, which is amazing. Can Praxis, started by a veteran. Elite Canines, another one, a charity started by a veteran, all bootstrapped on their own. And then you see massive IT companies that are taking over industry right now. So the complexity there, if that's the question, I don't think there's an issue on what's being started and the complexity of it. They go head first, and they have incredible drive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think my understanding of that would be just that the paperwork and the challenges with payroll and disability, or like the payroll taxes and all this kind of stuff. How do you pay people? That becomes a barrier to starting your own business. So is that something that you guys help folks with?
Yeah, it is. And I did note that earlier. It is, running a business, the legal challenges, the accounting aspect of it, all of those are things that we do help with as they've graduated from the program, as part of the teaching for the program, developing their business plan. That's all part of it. And then getting into the network within that shopveteran.ca, it allows them to network with other veterans that have started the business. So yeah, I mean, that is a huge hurdle for some. For others, it's not, but is that there's such an incredible community. I've not seen it with any other business, that they're willing to go out and help and support each other. And even if that means flying across the country to doing so, it's just a great group of individuals.
Mm-hmm. One of the challenges that folks have noted as well is just the cost of living in Canada continues to increase, and that makes it so that folks don't have necessarily the money to invest their own money into their next project or next business. Do you have any comments around that? Are you seeing anything to do with that?
Well, I think it's a challenge for every Canadian, so whether they're veteran or not. But look, I think that the investment to start a business is a difficult piece. It's something I touched on previously. It access to capital is one of the top issues facing veteran businesses. You see here with Hero Lodge, they bootstrapped it. Canadian Legacy Project, I started financially. Homes for Heroes, I started financially before we gained some steam. Before we opened Calgary Homes for Heroes, nobody thought it could be done. Nobody understood the concept. And now we're graduating veterans from off the street into their homes, onto their own homes, and back into the workforce.
Just my last question here. Around veteran-owned, has that been a positive, I guess, like, is there a good beneficial value to a business being identified as a veteran-owned?
You bet. And that's the second piece of this shop veteran piece is that, and again, we haven't had the marketing dollars behind it yet. We launched it in the middle of this year, but the whole goal there was to push Canadians to show that they can support veterans, and it doesn't have to be a donation. They can support a business. And we're having an incredible uptick on that. And Canadians, especially right now, Christmas time, individuals are supporting veteran businesses. They carry a logo, a brand of ours that says it's a veteran-owned business, and it's just gaining steam. With some more support and finance, we could really blow that thing up.
So you would say that is the case, then, that veteran-owned is a positive?
It's a huge positive, and and they're very proud to have that logo on their website.
Thank you very much, Mr. Howard. Appreciate. Now we will invite MP Clark for 5 minutes.
Je pense que vous avez dit, Madame Gaudreau.
I think that you told to Mrs. Gaudreau that most of your work with Hero Lodge was with people from Quebec and Alberta? Yes. So I have 2 questions. Why? Are you trying to broaden this to other provinces? If you'll allow me, I think that if you put all the provinces at the same place and you do a happy hour, I think the guy from Quebec is going to end up with having a beer with the guy from Alberta. And I don't know if that answers your question, but I think that there are a lot of similarities between Quebec and Alberta. That's just my opinion.
Very good. Yeah. Excellent. This is entire, I think, so far. Bravo. Mr. Howard, I would ask you as well, if I could. You touched on issues that you see through the Legacy Project that are impediments or barriers for veterans around access to financing or recognition of skills, and those are certainly things that I think in the general population we hear about as well. When I deal with people trying to start small businesses, it's always difficult. But I wonder, and you touched on this in your opening statement, could you maybe touch a bit? You've talked about financing a lot. Veterans going to banks or credit unions or whatever to get financing. Are there unique challenges that you've seen with veterans dealing with financial institutions that may be over and above what the average person might deal with?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. It's actually getting the paperwork together. It can be just a daunting task for a lot of vets. And if you imagine that you're suffering, if you have post-traumatic stress and you're asked to fill out a 7-page loan form, it becomes overwhelming if you don't have support. With the business boot camp, we're offering that support, that guidance. So I know VAC is creating an entrepreneur program, a division, which I think is incredible. Some of the people within it I've worked with before, they're very talented. So a lot of these things can be overwhelming. I think training employees is an overwhelming piece. Just working through any paperwork could be a difficult challenge for some.
You mentioned talking about the business boot camp that thus far, I believe, at least 300 veterans have gone through that program, which is wonderful. I'm curious, is that program right now kind of maxed out, or would you hope to expand it further? And are you able to expand it further, or what barriers might exist to expand that so that more veterans can take advantage of it?
Yeah, so when it comes, we can expand it. We want to expand it. We have expanded already, but the way that we expand it is by adding more university professors that have a background in entrepreneurial training and understand our veterans. So we have the ability to bring on a couple of more instructors, and it doesn't have to be in Calgary. I mean, our students come from coast to coast. It's done online, and so the professors can come. So we could expand it. We'd love to expand it. It comes down to funding. We have a number of other programs that require funding, and that's really the gist of it.
Yeah, and I wonder, with the boot camp, is there a way that you track progress over time for the people that go through it to assess, what's working, what you can improve on, what might be missing? Are there ways that you do that to assess the viability and the outcomes of the program over time?
We do. So there's a couple of things. One is right after the program, there's a survey goes out to all the students to make sure that we're getting feedback, and they felt like if there's anything that they believe was required, additional pieces they wanted, that they can give that feedback. And then we go back to our students every year that have graduated, and we touch base with graduates. We're saying, from the program, you might be 3 years in from graduating from the program. How's the program helped you? Have you learned anything now that maybe we should be adding to the program? So we're always tinkering and changing. I'm a big believer in research. If you're going to be successful in business, you need to understand the facts, understand what people want. And so we're always changing. We're always just trying to make sure that we're offering the best program possible.
I think I have about 20 seconds or so, Mr. Howard, so I will be quick. I'm wasting my time as I speak. What one or two skills do you see veterans having that most naturally go into the field of entrepreneurship?
Drive, passion. Those are the two.
Thank you very much, Mr. Howard. You helped our colleague here to stay within his time limits. And now again, Madame Gaudreau will address all of you in français, in French. So, pour 2 minutes et demie, Madame Gaudreau.
2.5 minutes, Mrs. Gaudreau. Thank you, Madam Chair. So what we're seeing here is that, yes, other than access to capital, and now I feel that we have the opportunity to see that there is a hero lodge in order to stabilize and perhaps even prevent suicide, and to give hope to veterans that they can go to the business boot camp at Hope for Heroes. And now I'd like to come back to Hero Lodge for a moment and to celebrate, because then they've gone into business. But let's talk about funding. What do you need? What do you need so that this will continue? Well, when we make requests, everything that's administration, paperwork, all of this, bureaucracy, this is really hard for me. I don't really understand that language, and it's easy to get lost. So when there are programs in place, you have to know what programs are available. And if we had someone to help us, to understand what programs could be useful for us and help us with the application. So not only you have the never give up temperament, and at the same time, Veterans Affairs has a lot of bureaucrats, and they will sometimes delegate out services for veterans. But in the end, this is coming from veterans, so it's kind of a mentoring, but also financial means to help you out. Is that it? Well, yes, we're able to do the rest. Once we're provided with the tools, whether it be financial or others, the teamwork is amazing. We have synergy, and we have 2 families. We have the military family. That's amazing. We help each other, and at Hero Lodge, all the people there come to work as volunteers. So here we are. We have. I'm here to give you an idea with the algorithms. We're able to see on social media what is the level of interest, and this year we were able to reach 1,500,000 people in September. People who were looking at Hero Lodge on social media, not 1.5 million people, and this is the military community, and so we're all helping each other out, and so the sky's the limit. The sky's the limit, Madam Chair.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Mrs. Gaudreau. For the last few minutes, 5 minutes and 5 minutes, Mr. Richards.
5 minutes.
Sure. I've got a couple quick questions, and I'm hoping to leave some time for my colleague, Mrs. Wagenthal. Mr. Howard, how is shopveteran.ca funded?
By Canadian Legacy Project, independently.
And is there any involvement from VAC as a partner? Do they refer folks to Shop Veteran? Like, is there any partnership from VAC in that at all?
Yes, recently they are referring people to Shop Veteran and the Business Bootcamp.
Okay. That's good. Good to hear. Is that something that you had to sort of establish, or did they reach out to you? How did that come to be?
I've been poking Veterans Affairs for the last 20 years, so I'm in front of them all the time. I think again, the new the arm of the entrepreneurship has really done a good job. They reached out to me on this one and asked to refer us.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad to hear that. It's sorry it took as long as it did, but I'm glad it's happening, and something we need to see a lot more of. So hopefully that's a model we will see more of. I'll turn the rest of my time to Mrs. Wagenthal.
Do I have? Second, 2 minutes. Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Dimitri, for what you are doing. And I just noticed here on the front page, it says every year Hero Lodge helps veterans find alternatives to excessive alcohol and drug consumption, encourage them instead to connect with nature. So clearly the passion there is to assist veterans when they're at a very low point in time. How do you find those veterans?
Bouche à oreille. C'est vraiment.
It's word of mouth, really. It's word of mouth. And next year will be our 13th season. So we don't need to advertise as much. I think people are aware that we exist. And this is through the beautiful military community, the veterans community. That's how.
Are they able to receive any funding from VAC as a service to their wellness?
Voilà.
No. And you have asked?
Oui. Plusieurs fois.
Yes, many times. But I would like to make a break between the service that I receive as a veteran. It's exceptional by VAC. That's amazing. But with regards to entrepreneurship, zero. I mean, I've never received an answer. We've tried many, many times, and I haven't found the magic recipe. So we're not giving up. We met with the minister today, and so I hope that will do something.
I think we need to be more creative in the way that VAC responds to the needs of our veterans, and this is a wonderful example of that. So thank you.
Merci, Monsieur Dimitri.
Thank you, Mr. Dimitri, for the last 5 minutes. Mrs. Auguste, and she will be speaking French.
So just make sure that you have the right interpretation. Merci beaucoup. Madame Auguste, 5 minutes.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in the prior study that we did, even though the subjects are very different, we spoke a lot about the importance to have peer support and a network of support and to have people who help us. And I'd like to know, how does shopveterans.ca, how can it become a peer, how can they offer peer help to help veterans with regards to entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so shopveteran.ca is a program that has all graduates that have started their own business. So they've been through the business boot camp, and so they rely on each other. They reach out through email, and then in turn they get on the phone and they start to help each other, no matter what that case is. So that support network is quite amazing. Also, really touching on an important piece, and I don't want to take up all your time, but I'll tell you that it costs $600 for a student to come through our program. $600 to become unemployed into starting their own business.
Merci beaucoup. Puis,
Thank you very much. Could you also speak to the impacts that you've observed among the participants, how this has affected them personally to be able to be an entrepreneur?
It's absolutely incredible. I mean, every time that we finish a session, we're getting letters, and we're continually getting letters and support and emails and phone calls from graduates saying, "You've given my life back. I'm on my own. I'm out and competitive. I'm surviving. I'm creating my own business. I'm creating my own business hours. I'm not relying on government support anymore. I have the freedom. It's everything that I've always wanted." And we hear it every single day from graduates. So it's pretty rewarding to sit back and listen and be a part of this. It's a great program, and all veterans that are succeeding after transitioning is a great thing.
Merci. Puis,
Thank you. And with regards to your work for entrepreneurship and veterans, I'd like to know, how do you see the evolution of your work in the years to come? If everything was possible, what would this look like in a few years?
You know what? If everything's possible, I mean, we would add probably 4 more instructors. We'd be full. We'd be offering this program every month, and it's a 6-week program. That's the need. That's the request for it. So if we had that funding and support, then we'd certainly do it. If it stays as is, then it stays as is, and we will work until there's no more requirement for that. But we're lucky to have some incredible support from corporate Canada and really everyday Canadians that support our veterans and those that sit on guard for our country.
merci. Puis,
Thank you. I don't know if you've mentioned this or not, but how many people go through your business boot camp each month?
Well, right now it's 40 individuals 4 times a year. So it's 160. We've just expanded that. So up for the last past years, it's been 100, started at 40, then it got to 80. So next year we'll be at 160 individuals going through the program.
merci beaucoup. Puis,
Thank you. Oh, do I have time left? A minute? Okay. Mr. Dimitri, you spoke about your work and especially the work that you do with Indigenous veterans. Could you elaborate a little bit more on what Hero Lodge does? Well, we are situated on the 62nd parallel and and we're on Great Slave Lake, so the closest community is at 60 nautical miles. We're in the woods, and we even have an electric fence against predators and bears because it's isolated. We're really in the woods, and this is very good for Indigenous, the Indigenous model, fishing and the outdoors. We would like to have a partnership with them. For many years now, we've been there for many years now, and I would learn a lot from them. I think that we could bring this to the next level with a partnership with Indigenous peoples. But once again, I've tried, and it didn't work out. And we've received emails referred by VAC, by some community chiefs, and they said that this was really great for them. So there is an interest, but I think that what we need to do is to be better organized and have some help from VAC. I think that our business, our model, and with the Indigenous people would be great. We had an Indigenous cook, and she would go to the woods to get different herbs, and we loved our experience. It was great, and I think that it would be super. I think that would be a very easy partnership, but we need support. Thank you.
both of you, merci beaucoup, Monsieur Démétré, et encore une fois.
Thank you, Mr. Dimitri. Thank you to you and your wife. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your service.
Thank you very much for joining us. So we will be suspending shortly, just in a minute, just to say a proper goodbye to all of you.
We would like to start the session up again. I would like to ask everyone to take their seats.
Our study, so I would like very much to thank everyone for joining us today. As individual, I would like to say welcome to Mr. John Proctor, Partner Cybersecurity, PricewaterhouseCoopers, who's joining us today. And from the Veteran Business Network Institute, Mr. Caleb Walker, Director. Each of you will have, and as I mentioned, 5 minutes to deliver your opening remarks. And once you have completed, we will open the floor for questions. Mr. Proctor, I'll invite you to give your opening remarks for 5 minutes, please.
Good afternoon, Chair and honourable members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm here to discuss the barriers facing Canada's military veterans as they seek to become entrepreneurs. I speak from experience, having served in both the British and the Canadian Armed Forces, as someone who's run their own company and taken it public on the TSX, and as a formal mentor to fellow veterans in business. While access to capital is frequently cited as a primary obstacle, I believe it is more of a symptom. The root cause is a series of interconnected gaps in perception, networks, and translation that ultimately create a high-risk profile for veteran in the eyes of lenders and investors. The first and most foundational gap is one of perception. In the UK and the US, the military is one of the most trusted and venerated institutions in the country. This creates a halo effect for veterans entering the business world. They are often seen as disciplined, reliable, and possessing elite leadership skills. In Canada, that perception is not as strong. The Canadian Armed Forces is not yet widely seen by the business community as a premier stepping stone to a second career. This means that from day one, a Canadian veteran is already facing an uphill battle to establish credibility. Changing this narrative isn't just about helping veterans. A stronger post-service reputation would also be a powerful recruitment tool for the CAF itself. This leads to the second barrier, the network and mentorship gap. The military is an insular, high-trust community. Upon release, veterans are disconnected from that built-in network. They must build a professional civilian network from scratch, which is a daunting task, yet critical for any entrepreneur. Organizations like Treble Victor exist to bridge this gap, but most veterans don't know it exists. Most importantly, they struggle to find mentors who understand both the military experience and the realities of the business world. I personally mentored 2 veteran startups under a program run by what was then the Prince's Trust. It was by far the most effective support program for veteran entrepreneurs in Canada, pairing them with experienced business leaders. Its closure left a significant void. Today, the landscape is fragmented, leaving veterans to navigate a confusing array of small programs, often guided by transition staff who, while well-intentioned, have little to no personal experience running a business. At the same time, I have personally been denied the ability to use my VAC education and training budget for training that would not only have enhanced my skill set, but could have enabled other veterans to join businesses. The third barrier is the cultural and skills translation gap. Veterans possess immensely valuable skills in leadership, logistics, and performing under pressure. But there's a disconnect. On one hand, veterans must learn to humbly translate their experience, for example, in terms of project management, human resources, and operational leadership. On the other hand, the cultural shift from military to business is profound. In the military, you become an expert at managing pre-allocated budgets, spending other people's money. In entrepreneurship, you are directly responsible for revenue generation. You only eat what you kill. This requires a fundamental rewiring of one's financial mindset. So let's pull this all together from a lender's perspective. You have an applicant who is disconnected from the local business network. They're an unknown quantity from an institution not widely seen as a business incubator. They lack a mentor to guide them, and they are navigating a difficult cultural and financial transition. Their business plan may be solid, but the perceived risk surrounding that founder is simply too high. Access to capital becomes the final wall to hit, but it was not the first one this veteran faced. To truly empower our veterans as entrepreneurs and unlock their economic potential, 3 key actions. Establish a centralized program, create a single, unified, and well-promoted national program for veteran entrepreneurs, a one-stop shop that provides cohesive training, resources, and a clear path from idea to launch. Reinstate a national mentorship network. Rebuild a robust mentorship program modeled on the success of the Prince's Trust, connecting veterans with experienced business leaders who can provide credible guidance and help them build social capital. 3, champion the veteran entrepreneur as a narrative. We must begin to actively celebrate our veteran entrepreneurs. By promoting their successes, we change the national perception and show the business community and future recruits that the Canadian Armed Forces is a world-class foundation for building a business and a stronger Canada. A final concrete step would be ensure veterans can use their education and training benefit for high-quality entrepreneurship and business management courses. By addressing these foundational issues, we can turn high-risk profile into a high-risk potential one and transform our nation's veterans from heroes in uniform to leaders and grow our economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Proctor. And now Mr. Walker for 5 minutes.
Chair and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to share my experiences as the current state of veteran entrepreneurship in Canada. I did 20 years in the Canadian Army, retired as a Lieutenant Colonel, did 3 tours to Afghanistan, 2 of them combat tours to Kandahar. Other than being a Canadian military veteran, I have 2 experiences that are relevant to today's conversation. 1, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I founded and sold a software company for 7 figures, and now I'm a co-owner of a multi-million-dollar business, 123 Cyber, a veteran majority-owned business with more than 10 employees. 2, I founded and built a nonprofit, the Veteran Business Network Institute, VBNI, that has 200 veteran business owners, where we run quarterly veteran pitch fests and annual events. The last pitch fest was in Halifax in September 2025, was attended by the Veteran Affairs Canada Associate Deputy Minister. What I'd like to present today is 3 actionable policies that the Canadian government can implement right now, and I hope my focus recommendations can add value immediately. As a successful business owner, Charlie Munger once said, "Show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome." I'll start with the current outcomes of the Canadian veteran business owners in a very narrow space of those that sell directly to the Canadian federal government. We don't know how many Canadian veteran business owners sell to the Canadian federal government because Canada doesn't track those numbers. But using my data from my nonprofit, I would estimate that there's a few dozen businesses. The community is small. Other than a few outliers, the total revenue that the Canadian federal government would be $50 to $100 million. When comparing to the United States, with 10 times the population, you might expect Canada to be 40 to 50 businesses and the U.S. to be 400 and 500 businesses. That would be incorrect. The U.S. has over 1,000 times more businesses. As of July 2022, there was 43,544 active veteran-owned businesses registered and doing business with the U.S. federal agencies, receiving $31.2 billion in federal contracts. It is estimated those federal contracts account for only 30 to 50% of those companies' total revenue. When including commercial, state, international revenue, it totals $72 to $120 billion of revenue a year, with an estimated 650,000 to 900,000 employees and jobs created in the country. These companies are overrepresented in industries such as the defense supply chain, infrastructure, cyber, IT modernization, engineering services, logistics, and construction. Why am I focused on this small and narrow example today, and why of all days? Because Canada is announcing generational investments into the Canadian military, and we need all those industries that I just said today. Unfortunately, there's not sufficient Canadian small business ecosystem to consume the investments, veteran or not veteran, and therefore most of that investment is going to go to large American and European defense companies. Where are the Canadian business-focused veterans that would build these companies in Canada, you ask? They all work for large international defense companies looking to win the generational investment, and there are no paths or incentives for them to build businesses here. So, if the United States has better outcomes, what are the incentives that created them? The first one, their Congress authorized a government-wide procurement goal of awarding at least 3% of federal contract award dollars to service-disabled, veteran-owned small businesses. Like Canada's Indigenous procurement target of 5%, it intended to build a robust veteran business ecosystem leveraging the decades of government, security, military experience that those veterans already have. Further, for every large U.S. defense contract, the large defense primes need to include subcontracting plans with veteran-owned businesses.
And lastly, the U.S. has a mature veteran incubation and funding ecosystem, ensuring that those businesses are procurement ready to work with federal agencies and other government contractors. So, show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome. If you want to build a successful veteran entrepreneurship ecosystem that can deliver on the generational investment that Canada is doing for the Canadian military today, that can expand and sell commercially and internationally, building jobs and building a Canadian economy, you need to change the incentives. So my 3 policy funding recommendations to enact today, immediately, are: first, follow Canada's Indigenous procurement target of 5% and build a 3% target for veteran small and medium businesses that match the U.S. policy. Use this moment for a once-in-generation defense investment to build a veteran business ecosystem for all the industries that we need. Second, adjust Canada's industrial technology benefit policy to include incentives and multipliers for large defense companies to work with Canadian veterans own small and medium businesses. And third, I would look to fund the University of Ottawa's Mission Entrepreneur Program and to build a sustainable mentorship and entrepreneurship program immediately focused on the Canadian defense and government space. These policy actions could be implemented quickly and fundamentally change the incentive structure for Canadian veterans, incentivizing them to build successful businesses here. These incentives will open up partnerships, funding, and larger effort in this space. Thank you for your time.
Walker. We will now open the floor, Mr. Tomey, for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to our witnesses. Thank you for your service, whether it was in the UK or I love saying this to the English. I love your Scottish accent, and then they get it. It's because I'm Scottish. I can't help it. So I have questions for both of you, gentlemen. And so, Mr. Proctor, in your opening statement, you talked about a blind spot. You referenced it. It's something that I've been kind of honing in on myself. Can you expand a little bit on your comments on that, please, sir?
Yeah, I'll give you an example. So in the UK and the US, they literally have annual awards for veterans in business. It's a huge event. It publicizes successful veterans. And again, if you're going to join the Canadian Armed Forces, we have it as well, that's the journey. You're just going to join the CAF. What if it's part of the journey? What if it's a way of saying, I'm going to join the CAF, but it's a stepping stone to another role inside Canada's economy? And it's a tremendous stepping stone. But that means we have to have the business community saying, I will value you when you come out, not a case of, I don't understand there's anything that's on your resume, which is generally one of the key concerns. So it's a two-way street. It's got to be, the CAF has got to say, yes, as we transition these people out, we're going to help them, take those skills and get ready. But it's also part of the business community saying, I recognize what's coming out and I find the value in it. So I think that becomes key.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And so I think where I kind of want to hone my questions on, you talked about, and I understand, military, when you're in a squadron or a platoon, you're allocated funds. That's what you're allowed to spend. And then you transition out, and you use the term, you can only eat what you kill, right? So if the government announced a new veteran entrepreneurship grant program tomorrow, let's say $10 million annually, versus reducing regulatory burden and taxes for all small businesses, including veteran-owned ones, which would have a bigger impact on veteran entrepreneurial success? Would you rather compete for limited government grants or operate in an environment where businesses can thrive? What are your thoughts?
So I think, again, businesses thrive overall has got to be key, right? That point of saying we can guide these companies through. Do I adore the idea of the 3% ITB? Absolutely, right? We see it work, how it's working in the US. You see it in a US RFP comes out. So it's great, but it's that whole cultural shift of saying we're going to help these veterans as they come out. And again, we had Hero Lodge here, et cetera. If you're coming out of the military and you're finding new purpose, how good is that relative to I come out and I feel lost? So I think, again, having that entrepreneurship, and it doesn't matter if they're building houses, whether they're working in tech, doing cybersecurity, it doesn't matter. Helping them find purpose in the business and helping them drive the Canadian economy, that gives them so much more to focus on than dwelling on the past to a certain degree.
Okay, I'm going to go off, and it's going to be a little bit of a tangent here. I just recently read a book. It's called Startup Nation. And I don't know if you've ever read it, any of you have. Okay, so it's about the entrepreneurship of Israeli soldiers and the environment that's created. And do you see that from your perspective in Canada? Do you see that? Mr. Walker, you've got your hand up, and Mr. Proctor, you're shaking your head. So
I'll let him take it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, before this business, I actually ran a business where I would train up veterans in the technology system. I trained thousands of them. I mean, obviously, if you've stayed in the military for 20 years, and you can be a certain amount of institutionalization so what you're talking about, the startup nation, if you could compare apples to apples, a lot of those people do 3 years in the military and then they leave, and it's really a stepping stone to get into cybersecurity. And so what I have seen is typically the younger people, or like the master corporals, the corporals, and the young officers are actually extremely good at hustling and finding new ways of looking for stuff and how do you make it happen. So there's the opportunity there. Like if you really focused in on the people that have got only a few years in the military and now they're kind of pulling out based on the culture that's been changed, as John was talking about there, then that would make sense. Obviously, the people that have been in for a little bit longer, it's a bit harder for them to change their mindset because they have a certain culture and a certain way of thinking. So, yeah, but the apples to apples, I think there's quite a possibility of leveraging people, particularly reservists, maybe that have they're younger and have the ability to drive that kind of startup in the military sector.
Okay, and I just want to make sure that we're using hustling as a good term. Okay, you talked about, Mr. Walker, about the 3% and the U.S. model. Tell me how that would operate here in Canada, and just I want to give you another minute to kind of just expand on. 30 seconds. I'm sorry.
Basically, it just changes some of the. It's a goal, just like it is with the Indigenous 5%, and then some of the legislation allows sole source contracting to companies and preferring them into the veteran businesses up to a certain level, and then as part of large major contracts in Canada, anything more than $100 million, they're underneath the ITB requirements, and so you would just add multipliers, maybe a 3 times multiplier. That basically incentivizes all defense companies to go and find veteran-owned businesses to work with and deliver to the Canadian government. So there's a variety of different options. I think just starting with the 3% up front, and then from there you can get into small details of small ways to incentivize, which really wouldn't be any more funding. It would just be changing the perspective of the utility of working with people that have decades of experience with defense and security. That would be the way to go forward with it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Walker. Now we'd like to invite Mr. Casey for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to both of our witnesses for your service and also for your very compelling opening remarks. I feel very privileged to be here with you with the tremendous business success that you've enjoyed. I feel badly that you only got 5 minutes because I could listen to you both for a while, and I hope my questions are up to it. So I'll start with you, Mr. Proctor. At the end of your presentation, you gave us 3 specific recommendations. I want to make sure that you get the chance to expand on them a little bit. A national certification program for veteran entrepreneurs, the reinstatement of a national network, I take that is bemoaning the demise of the Princess Trust, and the use of the training benefit for high-quality opportunities. Please flesh those out a little bit more. You didn't have enough time, and that wasn't fair.
Certainly. So the centralized program, and you've already heard 2 different programs in this, from the first session to this session, right? There's a very good session running organization at the Ottawa University running for veterans entrepreneurs. There's the one you heard before on this. So it's a patchwork, right? unifying this and again centralizing it, he's looking for the previous gentleman's looking for professors to help him. They're at Ottawa University, so some sort of efficiencies around that, creating a unified program. As a veteran coming out, it's really confusing coming out into the real world. I sometimes use the analogy, it's like coming out from a deep dive. Depending on how long you've been in and what you've been doing as a career, sometimes you come up, you get the bends, right? If you come up too fast to the surface. So coming up slowly in stages, being guided up to that surface, right? That's one of the ways of doing it. And again, when you come up to the surface, looking around and there's 27 different islands to swim to, can we just give them 1, 2, right? Just give it a uniform perspective, make it easier for them to take that entrepreneur journey. Then the mentorship program I belong to, it's a volunteer organization called Treble Victor. It's here in town. It's all veterans and all volunteers. They do Veterans on Bay Street. They help with a whole bunch of different things. There's about 500 veterans in there, or everything in. They're in BMO, they're in RBC, they're in good positions, but it's pure volunteer. And again, creating a formal mentorship network where they can reach out, I think becomes key, because then it comes down. The training one's interesting, and I met Madam Chair on Monday morning at the Mayor's Breakfast here in town, because I'm on the board of the Ottawa Board of Trade. Being on a board in Canada, often you need the ICD qualification. You've probably seen it on LinkedIn. I asked for my education training benefit to be used for that. It was denied. I appealed. It was denied. I appealed again. Denied. I'm now at the Federal Court of Appeal with it. Whereas a veteran in Alberta got his. So there's precedence. It is a recognizable designation, very recognized in Canada. And if we can get veterans on boards, who better to advocate into that organization to say, hire more veterans? So when I see things like that, I'm like, who's running that? Because that doesn't make sense to me. So, and the fact I have to go to the Federal Court of Appeal to challenge it for the cost of that to the government doesn't make sense. So again, I see some issues with that. But I think, again, go back to the key things, getting a unified program. I don't mind, like, it could be 2 or 3 different programs or different centers, whether in Alberta, whether in Ottawa, whether in Halifax, doesn't matter. But having a central organization that runs them, so the veteran has one place to go, and then the mentors can come into that, I think is going to make a difference.
Just curious, did you go right from VREB to the Federal Court of Appeal, or did you have to do judicial review at the lower court first?
No, I did both appeals inside Veterans Affairs, and then I was told, that's it, you get to go to you go to the appeal court, that's it.
Okay. So this is your first time outside of the VAC system into the court? Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
Truly confusing and terrifying, yep.
Mr. Walker, same for you. At the end of your presentation, you focused down onto procurement, but I feel like we didn't hear enough about VBNI. Could you talk about that a bit, please?
Yeah, the Veteran Business Network Institute, it really what I saw was there was no organization for veterans that are focused on building businesses. It's usually a different kind of focus. It's a different type of person that's an entrepreneur compared to someone that maybe is not. And so the intent is to do monthly meetings where it's a groups of 10, just like any other entrepreneur organization, where people can share ideas, issues, what they're doing, what they're struggling on. And then quarterly, we do a pitch fest with a little bit of prize money at the end. So that way, new veterans can kind of pitch their idea, get feedback on it, and get a little bit of cash to get going. And then we do an annual event, which we did in October, funded by the Veterans Affairs Canada, to just bring everyone together and look at different industries, what's the opportunities, how do we help each other. And there's some like amazing veteran entrepreneurs you probably never heard of. We highlighted a few of them at that event, ones that had run $100 million a year staffing organizations or $100 million a year in military equipment and simulation. And so, yeah, it's always a surprise to most both veterans or people in the public that they never hear any stories about successful veterans out there, which I guess speaks to John's a comment on the fact that we don't do annual events like that. But I think even people in the room were surprised about how successful some of the veterans are out there, but they just never think about it. So the intent is to just connect people with mentors and other business owners, and really going forward, it's like those pitch fests is hopefully we can really build out some infrastructure to launch companies as they get started.
Thank you very much, Mr. Walker. Just for your awareness, Madame Gaudreau will address you in French. Make sure that you do have the earpiece in the language that you prefer. Madame Gaudreau pour 6 minutes.
6 minutes. Thank you, Madam Chair. It's really refreshing, as we saw earlier as well, what happens when someone is an entrepreneur at heart. But my fundamental question, because I imagine that you've done some comparisons. We were talking about the U.S., for example, and what's happening in England. But what is missing here? What's truly missing so that we can offer programs, support, these things that you've mentioned?
I think the key is centralization, right? Getting the arms around it. It's ad hocery at best at the moment, is the term I'd use. And I think if we can pull this together, there's as Caleb said, there's a lot of veterans who want to be entrepreneurs. There's veterans coming out who want to contribute to the economy. If you can give them a clear framework, and I'll go back to the Prince's Trust. What they used to do was they'd run in-person classes. And then they'd reach out, they knew what business they were going into, and they'd reach out and say, I'm looking for mentors for these businesses, and you'd volunteer. And I mentored a construction company, timber framing company in Petawawa, coming out of Petawawa, bunch of infantry guys, fabulous, built my own house. They built my house for me. And then a guy who's starting electrical chargers for electric cars in Kingston. And it was a very formal connection, and they checked up on, make sure both the mentor and the mentee were working together, and it drove a certain behavior, right? What gets measured gets done. There were checks, and they were checking in to make sure it happened, and they had the formal training, and they kept it. And it was a very coordinated system. The moment there's too many different options for a veteran and pick one, and depending on what business you're in, who do you go and talk to? And I think that's it. And again, it's just taking that randomness out of it and creating some sort of formality and structure, I think would make a significant difference, certainly like the US and the UK has done. And then, as Caleb said, then holding up veterans who have been successful, whether it's companies here in Ottawa like Maxis or others that have done extremely well, so people can see that journey and they can see themselves in that journey. And I think that, again, would make a difference.
Qu'en pensez-vous, monsieur?
What do you think, Mr. Walter? What's missing?
A lot of opportunities to move on it. Just showing value in the veteran experience and capability in the larger ecosystem. That's what the 3% goal, because then it would incentivize companies or organizations to look at veteran entrepreneurs and partner with them and fund them and work with them. And so that shows that that the veteran who probably has decades of experience in military and security can probably really help with a problem and solve it. Because there's a larger ecosystem in Canada. There hasn't been a very good messaging on the value of veterans. And so a lot of veterans typically don't even say that they're veterans. If you go on their LinkedIn, they won't even talk about it. So we probably need to readjust what the value of the veteran is. And that's what you see a lot in the American and British context. So incentivizing that for the ways of changing the culture and the expectations of the veterans, I think would be a good way about going about it, and then just making sure it's organized deliverables as well in a national program.
Je trouve ça intéressant parce que au départ,
I think that's interesting because on one hand, we're talking about having access to mentorship in order to avoid to find oneself and with this whole variety of options, and secondly, to recognize veterans, but also to recognize skills development. When one becomes a warrior, there are so many skills. And most people don't have this as their life training, so it would be really important to have skills recognition and recognition of competencies, but also of talents. It's not the first time that we're told, I need to be active, I need to be ready to go, busy, and so there's some adaptability in that. And I think that your proposals are not only very interesting, but they should be very well described in the report. So if you have anything that's complementary, for example, in the UK or the US, on where, yes, the 3%, the model, the mentorship, it would be really good, because this is the objective of our study. And considering that we have a lot of catching up to do, but we will inspire ourselves with the best practices. I have a few seconds left. Do you have anything to add with what I've just said here?
No, thank you.
I think the only thing I would add is I think you're exactly correct, right? If we can show veterans that the end state isn't the CAF, right? It is. You serve, you do your time, whether you do 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, 22 years, it doesn't matter. But that's a journey for you to the next. I mean, even at 22 years, people are retiring at 42. They're not done, right? What else can they do into the Canadian economy, right? At this time, we all want to drive the Canadian economy. Give these veterans the best chance of being part of that.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much. Now for 5 minutes, Mr. Richards.
Sure. Thanks. I've got 3 questions that I want to get a response from both of you. So 6 total responses. We've got about 5 minutes. So if you can try and keep them fairly short. I wanted to start with, so not specific to veterans, but to start a business in Canada, period. What would each of you see as the biggest challenge to someone trying to start a business in Canada?
I think, I mean, you can start a business pretty quickly. I mean, inevitably, once you get to a certain scale, I guess it depends what kind of business you're talking about. I mean, the capital markets are, I had my software company. It was kind of hard for me to get any more sort of investment. But then I went down to the States and someone said that they could probably raise $50 million for me. And I was like, this is insane. And so just the opportunities for capital, particularly when you focus on, like traditionally in the VB&I network, 40% of the veterans work on defense and security companies. Until up to probably a couple months ago, it was pretty close to impossible for them to get any funding or investment. So long story short, it seems to be that is the biggest issue in the Canadian dynamic, is the funding and investment to go faster and beat your competitors, particularly in a competitive world.
Mr. Proctor, would you agree, or do you have something else you'd say would be the biggest barrier?
It's also around this sort of hint of the business, right? If you want to go and do a sort of woodworking business as not, CAF entrepreneur, have at it, right? If you want to scale something, right? If you want to truly sort of get up there and get in the market, yes, you're going to find the business leaders around you who will help you find capital, and they don't have the network. So that's the hardest thing coming out is, even as any entrepreneur, is finding the network for the business you want to be in. And it's harder still for the veteran.
Yep. And you both kind of already identified some of the challenges that face veterans, and you just touched on one of them again, Mr. Proctor. So, but what would you say, like looking at those challenges that you've identified, would be a unique skill set amongst veterans that would help them to uniquely meet that challenge?
It's the key there is this cultural shift, right? The military is a very unique culture inside the Canadian ecosystem, right? It has to be for the nature of what it's got to do. Pulling that person out into a business ecosystem, that cultural shift is hard. So looking at that shift becomes key. But then they recognize and they come with leadership skills. They're good under pressure. They may have advanced logistics skills, right? There's a whole bunch of soft skills. We all talk about this, right? They, being able to lead a company, a platoon. You've got to have soft skills, right? It doesn't sound right you're leading people into combat, but you've got to have the soft skills to do it. So these guys have all of that, but being able to translate that into this new culture is key.
So if I can ask on that, there are veterans who end up succeeding quite well at whether it be entrepreneurship, employment, whatever it might be, and then there are other veterans that seem to get stuck endlessly in the transition phase to move on with their lives, and they have all kinds of complaints about how long they wait, and they're delayed and they denied all the time by Veterans Affairs for like things like you mentioned that prevent them from being able to move forward. Is there something unique that's different between those two types of veterans that's causing them to succeed or not? Or is there something in the system that is preventing that for some of those people?
I would say, in the VBNI network, like realistically, we were only looking for about 20% of all veterans to be part of our network, because those are only 20% of them that are probably going to be interested in building businesses, be in the right headspace for that. A lot of veterans retire because they just want to retire, and that's what they're going to do for the rest of their lives. And others, maybe medically, they're not in the right headspace. But then on the other side of those 20%, or even maybe, even like 15, 10%, they are like top level. Like I would say that they're probably like the top, 10% of all entrepreneurs out there, because then they do really, really well. So, I think that it's just a very large, complicated ecosystem. But I think the narrative in Canada a lot is that all veterans are broken. And so if the veterans that do want to go start entrepreneur, they don't have that's the biggest feedback I get back from VBNI is they're like, oh, I finally found like my group of people, or or an organization that kind of matches the thing I'm looking for. Because every time they go to anything else veteran wise, or any time that they go to another event about veterans, it's all about how veterans are having issues and they're broken and they're not worth hiring. And so that's the complicated part of it. But if you can kind of piece out like a good portion of the veterans, 20%, that are interested in building businesses, and you enable them, they will run extremely fast and be very successful. But you just have to change the narrative.
So how
Thank you very much, Mr. Walker. I really appreciate. I'm so sorry, Mr. Richards. Next round. I would like to invite Mrs. Ertl for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Mr. Walker, thank you for hosting a pitch event in my province in Nova Scotia. And I'm going to talk for a moment about COVE, actually, the Centre for Ocean Ventures and Entrepreneurship in Dartmouth. They've been doing amazing work helping scaling the defense supply chain companies throughout Nova Scotia, owned by Canadians. Would you recommend putting resources in the hands of accelerators like COVE, along with changing the purchasing requirements for Canadian procurement?
Yes. I mean, essentially, to get into the Canadian government, the biggest thing that's going to hold you back is compliance. I mean, even like the most innovative companies working with the highest level universities, they might have the coolest products, but if they have got no compliance whatsoever, they're not going to go anywhere. And so enabling those incubators, because then you'll have the right crowd and right peers to go faster, and then hopefully the right instructors as well, and then getting them to go faster to enable the veterans in that space would be a great idea.
Thank you. IMP Aerospace has hundreds of staff in my riding, which then supports a supply chain of more than 2,000 people throughout Nova Scotia. Could that 3% goal that you talked about with the ITB to incentivize Canadian primes use, how am I wording this, to use Canadian veteran products and winning larger contracts?
Yeah, that's a great way to get, because I mean, that's the kind of the problem, right? Is you want to buy Canadian and you want to build an ecosystem, but not all companies will have the capability or interest to be in that space. I can tell you, based on my experience with VBNI, 40% of veteran business owners are in that space. So if you want to get them moving and have an incentive for big primes to work with them to enable the economy in Halifax and around Nova Scotia, that'd be what I would do. Okay. And yeah, anyway, yeah, it makes sense to me.
Yeah, cool. Okay, thank you. In VBNI, are most of the veterans you're working with, are they solopreneurs or would they have employees? And if they have employees, would they be looking to hire veterans?
Yeah, they do. I mean, one of our most famous ones right now is H2 Analytics. He's about 30 veterans. 30 people, sorry, and the majority of them are veterans from the Special Forces community. And so, yeah, it is a great way to, I mean, I tried for 3 years to get companies to hire veterans with my previous staffing company, and it's a hard sell because they hear the negative narratives. It's pretty easy when you go to a successful veteran business owner who knows what he's getting or she's getting, and they will be able to also help with the transition into the company because they'll know what they know, and they'll know what they have to teach them to get them effective really fast. And so most of the VB&I companies that I know, they hire a lot of veterans, far more than the current economy.
Because veterans would bring a special skill set, and you know, we've heard about human resources skills and project management skills. Are there other skill sets or attributes that would set a veteran apart from another applicant?
Well, business development in this space you're talking about would be the primary one. I mean, that's typically where majority of the senior leaders get hired by international corporations. Yeah, that would be it. Leadership, small teams, that would be it as well, particularly from the software and cyber backgrounds in the military. You see a lot of that in the product development space. Yeah, I think I'd say project management, HR, business development, and product development would be some of the better spots for veterans.
Great, thank you. And I've got about a minute, so I'm going to ask, I think there are perhaps, because veterans have a specific skill set that are easily transferable to entrepreneurship, how do we engage veterans who might be thinking about going into business for themselves but don't really know where to start? How would you suggest we reach out to them, either of you?
Show what success looks like. I literally didn't know that a veteran could start a business when I left the military after 20 years, and I joked about it all the time. I didn't know that there was veterans that owned successful businesses. And so I think, I mean, John's already gone into great examples here. If you just showcase that, put it out there and change the narrative, then people will start sniffing around. Even in the event that Veterans Affairs Canada supported in October, there was about 25 veterans that showed up, and they said, I didn't know that veterans could start and run businesses. And then we talked to Max System that has $100 million of revenue every year. And they're like, wow, that could be me. So that's what I would do.
Thank you very much. Now for 2 minutes et demie, Madame Gaudreau.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Are there some veterans that you've met with? And Mrs. Gaudreau, I'm going to suspend for 30 seconds.
Donc, j'ai besoin.
I need, I think that the bell's a maximum of 30 minutes, so I need consent, unanimous consent, to continue our discussion.
The bell, that's for sure. We need to go and vote, so I just want to make sure. So we can certainly have Madame Gaudreau and then maybe a few minutes each of you to complete your round of questions. Are you comfortable with that? Sure. We'll monitor. I guarantee you will not miss your vote. Merci beaucoup. Madame Gaudreau.
Mrs. Gaudreau, excellent. With all your advice, I'm trying to see how to encourage veterans when they're suffering, when they have not been helped, when they've not received all the services that they need after an accident or an incident. People are in survival mode before they can do anything. So when you look at what's happening here, compared, yes, I know it's a bit annoying. It's okay. Well, we'll stop and we'll continue after. Is there really a difference, Canada compared to UK and the US, on the suffering of veterans?
A difference in suffering, right? They've, you know, all three countries have been to conflict. All three have veterans. But it's how you deal with your veterans and how the country looks at the veteran, right? If you look at some of the, I mean, Walmart will hire army logistics people straight out because they know how good they are, right? That's where are our logistics guys going? Are they going to Loblaws? Are they go? I don't know because it's not talked about, right? But we've got very strong logistics folks within the Canadian Forces. So I think this is, again, as you said, it's perception of the businesses pulling. Is there a pull, or are these guys having to fight their way? And again, they've been in the military for years. Now you ask them to fight a new battle, and the new battle is to make themselves relevant in the business world. Instead of asking to fight their battle, how do we make that easier for them? How do we ease that role into a business position?
En fait,
when I was talking about suffering, it's if people have needs, if they need, for example, a hearing aid, if they need to consult with a professional because they have a psychological issue. But I understand that a program is necessary, and I also see that there are models that we should look at. That's all, Madam Chair.
Merci beaucoup, Madame Gaudreau. I'm just going to look on my left as to who would, Mr. Richards for 5 minutes, and then we'll give the floor to the Liberal, and then we will end this session.
Sure. Given the bells, I likely won't use the whole 5, but I did want to finish the conversation we were having, so let's try and do that. When we left off, Mr. Walker, you were talking about needing to change the narrative, and feel free to jump in as well, of course, Mr. Proctor. How do we do that, and how can the government help to make that happen?
Yeah, I think it really just is highlighting the success stories. I think an annual event would make sense to showcase the veterans that have successfully done that. And that would be the initial start of changing the narrative, I think. And I think if you change some of the incentive structures so that it was easier for veterans to be successful, then more people would see it. I mean, you can't be what you don't see. I mean, literally, most people leave the military, they don't think that they can start a business. It's just not a thing that they even thought about. So if you just showcase all the successes that are actually out there and then and highlight them more and more, I think it would be important. I mean, it's a very complicated space. So, like, I have a lot of friends that did my 2 combat tours with me, and they are using the Veterans Affairs Canada support a lot. And it's great that that support's out there because otherwise they would not be in a good spot. But at the end of the day, that's not all veterans, and so you want to somehow be able to tell, a couple of different stories. A different story, and the story you want to showcase in an annual event, probably all the great companies, all the different jobs that you're creating for Canadians, and all the different opportunities that you're creating in Canada. I think that would be probably a good way to get started.
Okay, and Mr. Proctor, do you have anything to add? We'll close it there.
Just to reinforce that, right? Give them role models, right? Let them know what's in the realm of the possible. Otherwise, they come out and think, okay, I've finished being a veteran, finished being in the military, I'm a veteran, I'm going to go fishing, right? And the problem then is, well, then they dwell, right? If you give them something to focus on, give them something to do, allow them to grow into business, then you stop dwelling, right? Caleb mentioned it, right? When you go to true veteran business things, they're talking about business, they're talking about growth, they're talking about the economy, they're talking about hiring, they're talking about challenges. It's fun to have throw a couple of war stories in, but that's not the focus. They're not looking back, they're looking forward. And I think that's the key aim I'd see out of this is give them a roadmap to look forward. We know what you've done in the past, but what are you going to do next?
Okay, so I'm hearing like that sense of purpose, that new sense of purpose is what I think I'm hearing.
Very much so.
Okay, thank you very much to both of you. You've been excellent witnesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're limited on time, so I just wanted to ask one quick final question, if I may. We talk about policies that need to be changed, and in some ways those are easier to identify because they're practical things. One of the things that stood out to me over the course of the discussion, Mr. Proctor, you touched on this, is kind of culture changes too, right? Which is harder because culture is, it's a human thing, inevitably. And you obviously you saw it yourself when you were in the military in the UK, and you see it in the US as an observer as well. So to try to make culture change practical, what would be, and I'll give you both of you a chance to respond quickly if you could, just what would be your number one thing from a culture change standpoint that would help?
I think, nationally promote life after the military in the business community. Simple as that.
Perfect. Thank you. Mr. Walker?
I think I'll use an example of another organization, which would be the academic institutions. A friend of mine works with like the 15 largest academic institutions in Canada, and up to a year ago, none of them would have been interested at all of working with defense because it was a bad word, there was no interest in there was no money, it's a waste of their time, everything else. Now they're all kind of eating out of a fire hose because they said, hey, there's some opportunity here. And so you're seeing people like that have been stuck in an academic world for decades or maybe even 100 years are now thinking about how do they change their organization, how do they change their institution, how do they bring in military leaders or security experts so that they can bring it in. And so, I mean, at the end of the day, to change culture, you got to change the incentives or some of the behaviors from the top. And so, you know, we don't, let's just get real practical here. I think if you really show that you're spending billions and billions of dollars now in the defense industry, so just adjust it a little bit so that it shows that it would be worthwhile of partnering or working with veteran business owners. And I think that would change things really fast. And then you do an annual event on top of that. It shows the best veterans in the business. I think it wouldn't take very long to change it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, both Mr. Proctor and Mr. Walker. Thank you for both your services and thank you for joining us. Sur ce, je vais demander, le comité souhaite-t-il ajouter?
Would the committee like to adjourn the meeting? Yes. Thank you. Meeting is adjourned.